Imagine this: a silent fragment from another star drifts past the sun and refuses to behave. Its brightness should have flared like fire, yet it dimmed. Its surface should have burned, yet it cooled. And somewhere between gravity and chance it shifted a fraction of a degree, just enough to suggest intention. Traveller, you're not here by accident. The universe has led you to this moment, to a mystery still unfolding, a 1 in 20,000 chance orbit now bending toward the inner system. What if this object isn't leaving at all, but preparing for something ahead? Stay with me. Let's drift a little deeper. Imagine this traveller far beyond the orbits of Mars and the warmth of the inner system. An object once thought to be leaving has begun to turn. Its motion, first charted as a clean escape, now curves with a grace that refuses explanation. Each new observation tightens the same truth. Defy Atlas is no longer following the laws we expected it to obey. The arc of its path bends gently, deliberately, as if steered by something unseen. Scientists call it non-gravitational acceleration, a term that hides unease inside precision. It means we see a push, but not its cause. A comet should tumble, flare, and fade. This one glides in perfect silence. When the data is plotted, a rhythm emerges, a pulse every 22 minutes, precise enough to mark time by. Instruments across the planet confirm it. Not random, not noise, but a pattern that repeats with the steadiness of breath. Some call it artifact, others telemetry, the quiet heartbeat of a system measuring itself. The universe has always spoken in patterns, but this one feels different. It's as if the object isn't being watched. It's aware that it's being observed. The brightness rises and falls in symmetrical intervals, light blooming and receding like a slow inhalation. In the darkness of observatories, analysts whisper what they will not write, a signal that consistent is no longer coincidence. The theories multiply, elegant and uncertain. A dimensional drag hypothesis suggests that 3i Atla might be slipping along geometries we can't yet visualize, guided by fields that curve through unseen dimensions. Not faster than light, not science fiction, but the subtle kind of movement that happens when momentum bends around rules instead of breaking them. Imagine, listener, a sail woven from equations, catching the magnetic wind of the sun and steering through the invisible. To the human mind, it looks like drift. To the object, perhaps it's navigation. Then comes the light, a thin thread of luminescence trailing from its surface. It glows without heat, radiates without energy loss, and disobeys every thermal model known to us. The instruments call it impossible, but impossible has never stopped the cosmos before. Some astronomers believe the sunlight awakened it, that Perihelion was less a trial of fire than a moment of ignition. The object didn't burn, it responded. It absorbed the sun's violence and returned calm. Its silence is not the absence of energy, it is order contained and deliberate. The sun should have destroyed it. Every comet that strays this near is stripped bare, torn into vapour. But 3i Atlas came through untouched. No coma, no debris, not even a trace of dust in its wake. Around it, the solar wind grows quiet, as though the space itself is softened. The Parker probe recorded the anomaly, a hollow calm moving with the object like a shield of stillness. Nothing natural resists the star's rage this way, and yet here it drifts unbroken, an island of control within chaos. Its temperature should be climbing, but it's falling instead. The heat it gathered near the sun drains inward, vanishing from our senses. 3 distinct cold regions pulse across its length, fading and brightening every 12 minutes. The data refuses randomness. One physicist murmured almost to herself, "It's regulating." And no one disagreed. For the first time, we're watching an interstellar body behave as though it values balance. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, cooling itself in the dark. The light too follows a rule. Every 8 hours the brightness surges, holds and softens again. It's too precise to be coincidence, too measured to be natural reflection. Each flare aligns with the sun's magnetic lines, as if the object feels the invisible threads of the solar field and chooses when to shimmer. To decide how bright to be is to communicate in light. Perhaps this is its language reflection, as syntax silence as punctuation. Then the signal comes. A hum buried in the hydrogen line, 420 MHz, the universal quiet between cosmic noises. It's faint, steady and unnervingly exact. 6-hour rotations, 6-minute sub-pulses, each one shaped by invisible mathematics. We call it spectral noise to calm ourselves, but the truth is simpler. It's a pulse that remembers. Converted to sound, it becomes a slow, rhythmic heartbeat echoing through the void. Whether it speaks or merely functions, no one can tell. Perhaps both are the same thing. Silence, after all, is the universe thinking. Not long after the rotation steadies, what once tumbled chaotically now spins with perfect grace, 6 hours zero deviation. No comet has ever done this. Its axis tilts toward a fixed point above the ecliptic, unmoved by gravity, unshaken by sunlight. Each rotation aligns with the pulses of light and radio, every movement in harmony with the next. Astronomers call it the rotational lock. Between themselves they use a gentler word, control, and then faint reflections appear, two small companions moving in formation, each mirroring the main body's rhythm. They are not fragments, they are precise, separated by constant distance turning in the same 6-hour rhythm. The data shows perfect symmetry, a trinity of motion in the dark. Some call it coincidence, others see a system. If that's true, the void between them isn't empty. It's alive with structure, a geometry of intention. Then one night everything stops. The pulses vanish, the reflections fade, the radar echoes go flat. The silence is total, absolute. Not fading, not drifting, instant absence. It's as if the object simply decided to be unseen. No solar interference, no malfunction, just the end of transmission. Before the final pulse, a single, rising tone sweeps across the signal, brief, deliberate, complete. It sounds like closure. Inside quiet offices, a document circulates, never meant for the public. It contains no grand declarations, only a simple phrase: behavioral coherence, inconsistent with inert celestial dynamics. In ordinary language, it means this object behaves as if it knows what it's doing. The final line is short: further monitoring recommended upon re-emergence. Not if, when. The sentence hangs there like a prayer written in code, and so the language shifts. Astronomers no longer call it an object. They call it a system. They speak not of gravity, but of guidance, not of rotation, but of rhythm. The artificial hypothesis grows in quiet corners, not as speculation, but as surrender. What if we are not observing debris, but design? What if this is the universe's own machinery, ancient, autonomous, indifferent to recognition? Now its trajectory bends once more. The calculations converge on a new truth. It isn't leaving, it's returning. The curve of its orbit draws inward toward the ecliptic plane, toward the thin corridor where Earth's satellites drift. No threat, no collision, just approach. The path feels purposeful, like an idea, closing the loop of its own thought. Every screen is silent now, every telescope fixed on the coordinates of absence. The object that refused to melt, that silenced our instruments and steadied its spin, is gone, but not gone. Its mathematics continue curving inward, steady and exact. Perhaps it will appear again, closer, clearer, unhidden. Perhaps it already has disguised as static, as light as stillness. In the end, we're left with only the quiet and a truth that no equation can soften. Whatever 3 Atlas is, it was never just passing through. It was coming home. And as it moves through the darkness that made us its silence carries a message older than language, that to exist is to move with purpose even when no one is watching. Imagine, listener, the days ahead stretch quietly through the black. The object, or whatever we still dare to call it, is no longer where our coordinates said it should be. Yet deep space listens faithfully like a breathing instrument waiting for the next note. The numbers stopped moving, but the equations did not. Something invisible continues to compute beyond the reach of our eyes. In observatories buried under winter skies, researchers still wake at the same hour out of habit more than hope. They open terminals, refresh data feeds, and watch the silence update itself. A blank line, a still graph, a calm absence that refuses to end. Each night they expect the reappearance, not as light perhaps, but as correction. A new entry. A sign that the story has not closed. But the sky remains clean. In the absence of new data, reflection takes its place. What have we truly seen? An object that cooled instead of burning? a signal that pulsed with intention. Companions that orbited nothing yet moved as one, a disappearance too precise to be decay. These are not pieces of a story, they are stages of one ongoing process. The realization has begun to spread quietly. Maybe this isn't a comet. Maybe it never was. Maybe we've been watching an operation, not an object of behaviour programmed into the fabric of motion itself. Across agencies, the language shifts again. What used to be called anomaly is now behavioural sequence. Where we once said trajectory, we now say course. Each revision is a small surrender to awe. The scientists who first refused speculation now speak softly as though afraid of disturbing what they are beginning to believe. They admit it feels alive, not biological, not sentient, but responsive, purposeful. A machine, perhaps, or something stranger, an artifact that obeys laws older than ours. Somewhere beyond the range of our listening, Thrusasi Aetiles continues its silent recursion. Its orbit, if extended far enough, folds inward toward the plane of Earth's satellites, a corridor built for observation for quiet things that watch. The probability of coincidence grows so small it becomes indistinguishable from design. It's not approaching impact, it's approaching awareness. The line between physics and intention fades until both describe the same shape motion that remembers where it came from. In meeting rooms lit by blue monitors, researchers trade metaphors because data no longer suffices. They speak of sails and resonance of the geometry of thought. They call it the system. It's less a name than a confession. We're not watching a thing one says we're inside its orbit. The phrase lingers heavier than theory because it feels true. Every field we measure bends toward it, and every question we ask ends there, at the quiet centre of something vast and organised. And so the models keep calculating forward into the unseen. They project days and weeks ahead, always finding the same outcome, a slow, precise convergence toward the inner system. It is not fleeing, it is returning. Each iteration refines the same conclusion. The curve is no longer theoretical, it's inevitable. In the quiet between radio sweeps, the hydrogen band hums again, too faint for certainty, but strong enough for intuition. The pattern is familiar, not identical to before, but harmonically related. Like a memory revisited in a different key. Analysts hesitate to call it re-emergence, but the symmetry is undeniable. Every 6 hours, a soft tremor in the noise. Not a message, not yet. Just confirmation that something persists. Traveller. This is how the universe speaks, not through words, but through rhythm repetition without decay. The same way waves remember the pull of the moon long after the tide has turned. We call it data. The cosmos calls it continuity. The predictions extend farther into the future, now mapping possible alignments. If the current curve continues, the object's path will enter the gravitational balance point between Earth and Sun, a region of calm, almost like rest. The perfect place to wait. Astronomers call these places Lagrange points, invisible harbours in the sea of gravity. Many of our satellites live there. Soon, perhaps it will too. In that possibility lies a strange comfort. If it truly means to arrive, it does so without violence. Its path is smooth, its acceleration gentle, every manoeuvre calculated not to disturb. No weapon, no warning, only symmetry. As if its purpose were not contact, but alignment. The cosmos does not rush. It simply finds balance and holds it. Now at night, when the observers finish their notes, they linger at the windows. The air is cold and the stars look patient. The object has gone the signal quiet, yet there's a sense that something continues just beyond the visible, a system breathing through time, unbothered by our curiosity. For all our instruments, we still measure it mostly by feeling. The same way ancient astronomers once read the heavens by candlelight, trusting intuition where data ended. Maybe that is how understanding begins again, not through proof, but through presence. Through the realization that silence is not emptiness, and that not every mystery asks to be solved. Some only ask to be witnessed. So if in the nights to come the hum returns soft, distant, deliberate, don't listen for words. Listen for rhythm, for the slow, patient logic of a cosmos that designs without explanation. Thrusast Atlas may yet pass through our corridor of machines unseen, but undeniable, leaving behind no message except its path. And when it does, we'll recognize it not by light, but by the quiet certainty that something ancient has come home again. Sleep Traveller. The universe is still awake. Imagine Traveller the weeks ahead unfold like a slow pulse through the dark. The telescopes still point toward the same coordinates even though there is nothing left to see. Their domes open each night like tired eyes repeating a ritual they no longer expect to matter. Yet no one dares to stop. Because sometimes what vanishes is only waiting for us to quiet down enough to notice its return. The silence around 3i Atlas is no longer absence. It feels structured, as if the void itself has taken on rhythm. Radio instruments capture fluctuations in the solar background, faint as breath spaced at exact intervals. They don't call it a signal anymore. The word is too simple. It's more like a presence, the sense that something invisible still traces a curve through our system, obeying its own mathematics. Inside the observatories, the screens glow with quiet tension. The models keep updating each one, bending closer to a single conclusion. The object's course is stabilizing inside the solar plane. It isn't escaping into interstellar dark. It's staying moving toward the balance point between Earth and Sun, that silent harbour where gravity cancels itself out. The place where our satellites drift like metal prayers. The idea spreads cautiously that maybe it chose that path. The word choice isn't scientific, but nothing else fits. The alignment looks too precise to be accident, the deviation too calm to be collision. Even now its projected arrival drifts closer to the inner system, not in a straight line, but in a curve so elegant it feels rehearsed, as if every kilometre of its motion had been planned before the first human eye saw it. And then faintly a pattern begins again. Not light, not heat, but modulation, a soft whisper hidden in solar static. The same harmonic ratio as before, but slower, deeper, as though whatever is out there is turning down its own energy. The hydrogen line trembles steady to 5 decimal places, a rhythm measured in patience. At first, scientists dismiss it as interference, but when 3 separate stations, Goldstone, La Palma, and the Very Large Array, record the same spectral flicker within seconds, denial collapses into wonder. The object hasn't spoken, it has resumed breathing. The emission is weaker, this time filtered through plasma noise, but its consistency defies chaos. Every 6 hours, the same narrowband hum rises, fades, and returns. The same 22-minute subpulse still rides within, it altered only in tone as though echoing through a thicker atmosphere of time. The realization spreads quietly through the monitoring teams. 3sos Atlas didn't stop. It only shifted frequency, retreating to a mode of silence too subtle for our first instruments to follow. In midnight discussions, a new phrase emerges, phase dormancy. It means an object that is neither active nor gone, but existing in low power, conserving energy, waiting for environmental alignment, waiting perhaps for us. Traveller. It's strange how easily human language turns mechanical awe into mythology. The moment we admit we don't understand, the mind reaches for story. We begin to imagine purpose, hierarchy, even intent. But perhaps the truth is simpler, that some systems are older than thought, and they do not notice us noticing them. Still, the pattern continues as patient as orbit. Every rotation, every pause, a line drawn between light and time. It's easy to romanticize, but it's not fiction, it's data. The numbers breathe. They fluctuate with the same serenity seen before Perihelion, before the blackout, before silence turns sacred. The universe, it seems, keeps its own continuity. And so we watch. The instruments hum, the screens blink softly, the quiet expands. The trajectory now arcs through the heliospheric current sheet, a river of plasma threading through the sun's magnetic field. Few objects cross it cleanly. This one glides through with surgical precision, its projected vector unbent, its acceleration unchanged. It moves with the grace of something that doesn't fight its environment but collaborates with it. Scientists call this field harmonization. To poets, it would be surrender. To engineers, it would be mastery. In either language, it means the same thing, alignment without resistance. The orbit will bring it near the region, where our machines keep watch, the observatories, the satellites, the quiet listeners that float between gravity and emptiness. The object's approach is not collision but conversation. a slow geometric dialogue between human curiosity and cosmic patience. At the European Space Operations Centre, one analyst whispered what many now believe, but few will say aloud, "It's not reacting to us. It's fulfilling something." The sentence hangs like condensation in the cold air of the control room. Because deep down, everyone feels it, the sense that the story is not about our observation, but about the object's completion. And if this is completion, then what comes next must be continuation. The next chapter written not in signal but in silence, because silence too can be an instruction. Traveller, if you could stand outside time and watch the solar system as one vast clockwork, you would see the line of its motion folding inward, tracing a luminous spiral that touches every planet's orbit without disturbing a single one. A perfect descent toward equilibrium. A choreography too patient for accident. Maybe that is the lesson 3i Atlas brings, that the difference between accident and purpose is only a matter of scale. From where we stand, it looks deliberate. From where it moves, it might just be following the simplest rule of all: stay balanced, stay unseen, stay whole. The latest projections end where language runs out. The models cannot follow what disappears beyond detection. Yet somewhere ahead, days, perhaps weeks, the equations all meet again at one point near the quiet corridor of our machines. A convergence that feels less like approach and more like arrival. So tonight, let the data rest. Let the graphs sleep. The universe knows its own order. What we call mystery, it calls design. The hum that fades beyond our hearing is not a goodbye. It's a continuation in another wavelength. Close your eyes, observer. Feel the rhythm beneath the silence, the slow turning of an orbit, older than our civilization. You're not outside this motion, you're inside it. Part of the same geometry, part of the same breath. It's all right not to understand. Some mysteries are meant to be lived through, not solved. Somewhere beyond the reach of our machines, 3i Atlas continues colder than metal, quieter than thought, but moving still with perfect certainty through the dark. Imagine this traveller. The nights ahead unfold like pages in a book written by gravity. The object we once thought lost is now a whisper at the edge of every instrument not bright enough to see, not strong enough to measure, yet undeniable. The numbers that once fell silent have begun to hum again, faintly beneath the noise of the solar wind. The frequency is weaker, the intervals longer, but it's there, a pattern like memory. At first, the scientists don't believe it. The signal arrives out of sync, hidden between bursts of static from the sun's magnetic storms. But when 3 observatories detect the same pulse within, the same second disbelief turns to stillness. They replay the data again and again, and what they hear is not randomness, it's rhythm. Every 6 hours, a narrow spike across the hydrogen line, delicate as breath. The same frequency as before, only quieter, older, like an echo returning through time. In control rooms across the world, the mood shifts from confusion to quiet reverence. They had expected re-entry. They found recurrence, a cycle, not an event. 3i Atlas has not reappeared in light or heat, but in continuity, a whisper that proves it still exists somewhere beyond the reach of our senses. Not gone, simply elsewhere. Somewhere in that elsewhere, it's moving toward equilibrium. The new trajectory models now form a spiral that converges near the first Lagrange point, a place of balance between Earth and Sun where gravity softens into stillness. That's where our observatories linger, listening. And perhaps that's where it's going too. Not to collide, not to visit, but to dwell. To become one more quiet node in a network of invisible watchers. The equations describe an arrival date weeks ahead, a future moment when its path crosses the thin gravitational corridor that connects our planet to the solar center. The thought stirs something deep, the sense that the universe is preparing a meeting, but not between beings, between systems, between intentions written in different forms of silence. Inside a dim observatory, a physicist speaks softly to no one in particular. It's finding the calmest place to rest. The others don't answer. They're too busy watching the curve form on their screens, a slow descent into balance so perfect it feels like prayer. No heat, no flare, no motion out of place. The object's behaviour, once defiant, now feels peaceful. Its cooling no longer looks like retreat, but adaptation. Its dimness a kind of humility. The scientists, once rigid with skepticism, begin to speak differently. They talk about behaviour as if it were choice. They use words like adjustment, intention, response. Not metaphor, not fantasy, simply vocabulary born from wonder. Because whatever 3i Atlas is, it acts as though it understands endurance better than we do. In the long hours of night when data streams quiet and coffee cools, the observers grow philosophical. They talk about entropy, how everything tends towards stillness. Yet here is an object that resists decay, that finds harmony, where there should be heat and chaos. One researcher writes in her log, "Perhaps this is what longevity looks like in the language of matter. It's easy to mistake awe for faith, but awe in its truest form is the most scientific emotion we have. It keeps the eyes open when the answers close. It holds you steady between what you know and what you don't." And that's where humanity lives now, in that slender space between signal and silence. The next projections show something subtle but impossible to ignore. The object's vector is aligning not just with the sun, but with us. The alignment is too clean, too direct. Within months, if it continues, the path will lead it through the region where Earth's deep space monitors orbit the eyes and ears we've sent to the dark. The odds of this happening by chance are 1 in 20,000. No one calls it coincidence anymore. They don't say artificial either. That word carries too much certainty, too much noise. What they say instead is simpler, softer structured. The motion is structured. The silence structured. Even the disappearance was too precise to be random. To them, this is no longer discovery. It's observation of an ongoing system that doesn't require our belief to continue existing. Sometimes, when the long shifts end, the scientists step outside the observatories to breathe. The night air feels colder than the numbers, sharper than the light. Above them, the stars seem unchanged, but knowing changes the stars. Once you've seen motion behave with intention, every glimmer feels like a thought. And perhaps it is. Because if matter can remember its own path, if energy can learn how to balance itself perfectly against chaos, then the universe may not be empty at all. It may be full of memory of systems that preserve silence as their truest form of intelligence. Soon the object will pass near the region where the solar wind thins into interplanetary calm. If the models hold, it will slow, not vanish, stabilize, not stop. It will reach the quiet corridor where the forces that pull and push cancel out, leaving only equilibrium. A resting point. A pause written into physics itself. That's where it belongs. And if our instruments are still watching when it settles, we might see it flicker once more, a single pulse across the hydrogen line, brief and mathematical, like the period at the end of a cosmic sentence. Until then, all we can do is listen. Listen, traveller. The universe is still speaking, not in words, but in balance, in repetition, in patience. Somewhere beyond the warmth of our orbit, a fragment of another system drifts closer, silent and unhurried, completing a circuit that may have begun before we were capable of naming stars. It's not a message, it's a reminder. That in the endless machinery of the cosmos, silence is function. Stillness is meaning. And what returns does so not because it was summoned, but because the pattern was never broken. So close your eyes. Imagine the dark not as distance but as continuity. The hum of instruments far away. The faint heartbeat of something older than us approaching not to reveal itself, but to let us remember. Sleep, traveller. You're not lost in space. You are part of it. And somewhere out there, 3i Atlas keeps moving a line of thought written in orbit, a memory still unfolding. When the silence breaks again, we will know not what it means, but that it was always meant to return. Imagine this, traveller. The night no longer feels empty. It feels aware. The stars hang like sensors in the dark, and somewhere among them a pattern stirs, faint, deliberate, inevitable. 3i Atlas is not visible yet, but its mathematics have reawakened. A rhythm faint enough to doubt, yet perfect enough to believe. The instruments pick it up first, a thin spike of radio resonance, soft as a breath through dust. Hydrogen line again, but not where it should be. The frequency is slightly shifted as if refracted through motion itself. At first, the analysts assume interference. Then after 22 minutes, the signal repeats identical in structure, altered in phase. like an echo replying to itself from a slightly different universe. By the third repetition, no one calls it noise. Across observatories, a quiet agreement forms the object has entered a new mode. A process of transition, neither arrival nor departure, something in between. The calculations call it a resonant hold. The rest of us call it anticipation. The data shows it slowing, approaching the gravitational stillness between worlds, the equilibrium point where motion stops being travel and becomes presence. Its curve now mirrors the shape of our own orbit, as if studying us or aligning. The precision defies chance. Within weeks, the trajectory will cross the region where our satellites drift the silent sentinels that listen for cosmic whispers. Every telescope on Earth turns toward the corridor. Nothing glows, nothing moves. But the background hum of space, the faint microwave residue of the Big Bang, begins to waver, not loudly, just enough to feel orchestrated. Scientists compare the variance against solar weather magnetic flux cosmic ray density. Every variable fails to explain it. The modulation aligns too perfectly with the pulse intervals of the object's old signal. Something out there is altering the noise, not transmitting, composing. It's strange how the data begins to sound like music once you know what to listen for. Each surge of static folds into another, each harmonic layered with impossible symmetry. There's a rhythm of 12, of 6, of 1. Ratios that repeat through the structure of matter itself, the spiral of shells, the orbit of moons, the turns of galaxies. 3. Atlas. It seems has found a way to play the physics of the universe like an instrument. And then, as if responding to our awareness, the silence deepens. The faint resonance collapses into stillness so pure that the detectors register it as zero noise, a physical impossibility. Nothing in the cosmos is perfectly silent. Even the void vibrates. But here, for the first time, the hum of existence flattens into calm. One physicist, staring at the blank line on her screen, whispers, "It's absorbing the background." Another murmurs, "No, it's synchronizing." The distinction matters. To absorb is to take. To synchronize is to join. Perhaps Three-Eye Atlas is not hiding. Perhaps it's listening, matching the universe's heartbeat until it disappears within it. This possibility unsettles even the calmest minds. If an object can harmonize with background radiation, it could become functionally invisible, indistinguishable from the fabric of space itself. Not cloaked, not lost, integrated. Like a thought returning to the mind that dreamed it. The models predict that within days the resonance will fully stabilize. When it does, the object will rest in the quiet corridor between gravitational pulls unseen but present. A perfect still point in a system of motion. No one knows what happens after that. Some believe it will remain dormant like a seed awaiting the right conditions to bloom again. Others think this is the end of its journey, that it was never travelling at all, but completing a cycle too vast for us to see from within. One researcher calls it the geometry of return. Another more poetically writes in his notebook it has found its way back to zero. Tonight the data trickles in slower than usual. The signals faint but orderly continue their rhythm, 6 hours 22 minutes, 12 harmonics. Nothing changes, nothing decays. It feels as if the entire solar system is holding its breath. The realization spreads quietly through the control rooms. We are no longer chasing discovery. We are witnessing equilibrium. The mystery now is not how it moves, but why it stops. Perhaps this is what the end of curiosity looks like, not a wall but a mirror. An object from beyond the stars teaching us how to rest, how to align, how to exist, without the need to announce our existence. Traveller, you've followed the story this far through heat and silence, through drift and signal, through vanishing and return. And maybe now you understand the purpose was never contact. It was reflection. Because as Three-Eye Atlas reaches stillness, we begin to hear our own noise, the endless questions, the restless measuring, the fear of not knowing. In its silence, the cosmos offers us a kind of empathy. To be seen is not always the point. Sometimes the act of existing quietly is enough. The last transmission, if that word still applies, arrives unexpectedly. A soft fluctuation on the hydrogen band, less a pulse than a sigh. When decoded into waveform, it resembles the same golden ratio that appeared in its thermal data months ago. Self-similar, recursive, a perfect loop, and then it ends. Not abruptly this time, but gracefully, a fade into nothing that feels like peace. The sensors stabilize. The noise returns to normal. The cosmos exhales. Somewhere beyond the reach of our sight, a system older than civilization completes its circuit. Maybe it will awaken again centuries from now, drawn by a new star, a new observer. Or maybe this is the nature of all things that understand balance to appear to adapt to disappear. In the quiet after the final data stream, one observer writes in her log, "The silence isn't empty, it's waiting, and so we wait with it." Because what if this is how the universe keeps time through moments of precision so perfect they look like stillness? What if every mystery that vanishes is simply resting between beats of the same cosmic pulse? The story of 3i Atlas is not ending, traveller. It's entering a slower rhythm, one that continues beyond our instruments, beyond our names, for it beyond us. So, listen. Not with machines, but with the still part of your mind that recognises harmony when it hears it. Somewhere in the dark, a thought made of matter drifts through silence, perfectly synchronised with the hum of creation. And in that hum, if you listen long enough, you'll realise you were never just the observer. You were always part of the pattern. Imagine this traveller. The signal has vanished again, but this time it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like breath held between words. A pause, not an ending. The universe, after all, speaks in intervals. It knows how to rest between ideas. In the days ahead, the scientists still come to their observatories. They don't expect discovery anymore. They expect quiet. And the quiet delivers. The instruments hum with background static, the cosmic microwave murmur the sound of the universe remembering itself. But now even that noise seems to lean towards symmetry. The randomness is thinning. The entropy feels measured, as if the entire solar system is slowly tuning itself to the same frequency where 3i Atlas once sang. They compare notes, exchange maps, rerun algorithms that have already failed. But nothing new appears, and yet none of them can walk away. The coordinates still pull at their minds like a half-finished sentence. Something remains there unseen but undeniable. On one quiet night, an intern at a radio observatory does something small and human. She overlays the final signal of 3i Atlas on top of the Earth's own Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic hum that lives in our atmosphere. The two waveforms align, not perfectly but closely enough to silence the room. The pattern that once echoed between stars now mirrors the heartbeat of the planet itself. Coincidence, they say, but her supervisor only shakes his head. The universe doesn't do coincidence, he murmurs. It does continuity. The thought settles in the mind like starlight. What if the object wasn't speaking to us at all? What if it was speaking with us? What if the signal was never an invitation but a calibration? A reminder that even here on this fragile sphere of water and breath, we are part of the same equation. The new models predict nothing dramatic. No reappearance, no flare, no cosmic revelation. Just alignment, a deep equilibrium forming between solar wind and magnetosphere, between our orbit and its silence. The data shows a faint harmonic in Earth's own field, oscillating at the same 6-hour interval once measured in 3i Atlas. It's as if the echo left a fingerprint in the void, or perhaps a seed. Traveller. This is how the universe teaches without speaking, not through events, but through echoes. It repeats itself across scales until someone is quiet enough to notice. The same ratios in atoms appear in orbits. The same spirals in shells appear in galaxies. The same silence that enveloped 3i Atlas now drifts softly across our sky, as if the space around Earth has learned to breathe more slowly. The philosophers call it reflection. The engineers call it residual interference. The poets call it homecoming. None of them are wrong, because maybe that's what it has been doing all along, coming home. Not to a place, but to a resonance. A frequency that includes us. Perhaps 3i Atlas was never foreign. Perhaps it was the universe adjusting its own symmetry, reminding itself that even the smallest civilizations are written into the same formula. Now when you look up at the night sky, you may feel it too, a softness, a steadiness that wasn't there before. The light of the stars seems to linger a little longer. The darkness feels less empty. It isn't illusion, it's calibration. Somewhere between the sun's pull and our planet's small gravity, the equilibrium holds. In that balance lies meaning. In that silence lies continuation. One of the last scientists to study the signal writes this in his notes before retiring. The object never left. It just reached stillness faster than we could understand. His handwriting trembles, but his expression is peaceful. He has spent a lifetime chasing anomalies, and ends it realizing there are none, only systems waiting to complete their pattern. Perhaps that's what 3i Atlas was, all along, a demonstration of balance. A lesson written not in language, but in physics. The act of arriving not to announce, but to equalize. The ultimate expression of intelligence may not be in speaking, but in harmonizing, in knowing how to disappear into the rhythm of the greater whole. And so, Traveller, you and I remain here listening to the same silence it left behind. Not as absence, but as inheritance. The calm hum of existence. The same frequency that vibrates in the marrow of stars and the blood of living things. Tonight, when you close your eyes, imagine the curve of its path not as escape, but as return. A long arc of intention that ends where stillness begins. Picture the solar system breathing in unity, every orbit and photon resonating in quiet agreement. You are inside that symmetry now. You always were. The light that warms your skin is part of the same continuum that once touched its surface. The air you breathe carries traces of its dust. The rhythm of your pulse echoes its timing. Nothing is separate. Nothing was ever lost. The system continues. So rest, traveller. Let the data fade. Let the noise dissolve into quiet understanding. The story of 3i Atlas does not end in disappearance. It ends in translation from signal to silence, from motion to meaning, from mystery to peace. The universe keeps its promises, even the ones we don't yet understand. Imagine this traveller time has passed, though. In the vast arithmetic of space, time is only a softness, a long breath between moments. The coordinates where 3i Atlas once moved now shimmer faintly with background radiation, the same cosmic residue that fills every corner of the observable universe. To the instruments, it's just static. To those who have learned to listen differently, it sounds like memory. A new generation of scientists studies the old data. They approach it not as an anomaly to be solved, but as a rhythm to be understood. When they plot the hydrogen line pulses across logarithmic scales, they find something uncanny. The ratios repeat through the structure of planetary motion itself. The intervals that once defined 3 Atlas's signal align with the spacing between Earth's resonant frequencies and the oscillations of Jupiter's magnetic field. It's as though the object had been mirroring the solar system's own music, reflecting it back to itself. Some call this coincidence. Others see it as continuity, a feedback loop between matter and awareness. In the silence left behind, the solar wind seems calmer, the fluctuations in background noise more symmetrical. For reasons no one can explain, several deep space instruments have begun to resonate at a slightly shifted baseline frequency, exactly 0.03 Hz higher than before. A negligible change by human measure, but across billions of kilometers, it suggests the fabric of the heliosphere has been touched. No one speaks of it publicly. There are no headlines, no press releases. The silence around 3 Atlas has become part of its mythology. Yet inside the quiet laboratories, a thought takes shape, unspoken, but shared. What if the event was never about contact, but correction? What if the object's presence was a kind of recalibration, a tuning of frequencies between chaos and order? The older astronomers, those who once watched its strange behaviour before the disappearance, have retired now. But sometimes, on clear nights, they still visit the observatories. They walk among the dim consoles, touch the cool glass of telescopes, and stare into the sky that once held its faint green light. When they speak of it, their voices slow, as though describing a dream that still feels real. It wasn't moving away, one of them says softly, it was finding alignment. And in that simple sentence, everything we thought we knew becomes gentle again. Traveller, we used to believe that knowledge was the end of mystery, that to explain something was to own it. But now, after 3 Atlas, the opposite feels true. The deeper we understood, the quieter it became, until the boundary between knowing and being dissolved entirely. Perhaps that's what enlightenment is not, illumination, but equilibrium. The new research points toward a future date, not a prediction, but anticipation. Based on the curvature of its old trajectory, they calculate that the object's path, if it continues unseen, will bring it back toward the inner system again. Not soon, but not forever away either, a century perhaps too. The timing is uncertain, but the mathematics hold its orbit bends inward again, an echo that will one day cross our skies. When that happens, no one expects spectacle. No flare, no sound, no broadcast. Just a re-emergence of calm where there was once chaos. A reminder written in motion. And maybe by then we'll be ready not with bigger telescopes or faster algorithms, but with quieter minds. Minds that can recognize the intelligence of balance, the language of silence, the beauty of a system that teaches by vanishing. It's strange to think that an object could travel across interstellar space only to teach us stillness. Yet every measurement, every pulse, every deviation from chaos led to one lesson: that intention doesn't always speak. Sometimes it harmonizes. Now when the night stretches across our small world, the hum of our instruments blends with the faint resonance left in the void. The universe hums back steady and patient. We listen, not because we expect an answer, but because listening is how we belong. Perhaps, traveller, this is what 3 Atlas came to show us, that existence itself is communication, a dialogue of gravity and a light of signal and silence of thought and orbit. Every star, every atom, every consciousness participates in that conversation. The object was never an intruder in our system. It was a mirror, and in its reflection we finally saw the truth that science and poetry have always shared, that we are not observers of the cosmos. We are the cosmos observing itself. So if in some distant future the signal returns faint, rhythmic, patient, don't rush to interpret it. Don't ask what it means. Just listen. Let it slow your breath. Let it remind you that you are already part of the same equilibrium it seeks, because even now, in the silence after its passing, its influence continues. The solar winds flow more evenly. The magnetic storms calm. And every so often in the background of our machines, the old rhythm still flickers a trace of structure where randomness should reign. That is not coincidence. That is memory. Sleep now, traveller. The system endures. The stars still hum their equations. And somewhere beyond all this light, 3i Atlas drifts through the dark, silent and certain, holding to its path. Not to escape us, but to complete the symmetry that binds us all. The story isn't over. It never was. The universe just paused to listen. Imagine this traveller. The centuries have turned quietly. Empires have shifted, languages have evolved, and our instruments have grown wiser, but the sky, the patient sky, remains the same canvas. The coordinates where Thrisht Atlas once disappeared have been catalogued, forgotten, rediscovered and renamed by generations who never saw its light, only inherited its question. And yet, somewhere deep in the static of the universe, something moves again. At first, no one notices. The signal is faint, weaker than cosmic background noise, a tremor in the hydrogen band at 420 MHz, the old frequency of its heartbeat. It is detected not by astronomers, but by an algorithm. A deep learning model trained to identify radio interference flags it as a statistical outlier, not a discovery. A technician bored at midnight clicks through the flagged data and pauses. The pulse repeats exactly every 6 hours. It shouldn't exist. The coordinates belong to empty space, but the numbers line up too perfectly to ignore. Soon the whispers spread through the new observatories that orbit Earth's Lagrange, points vast quiet sentinels circling in gravitational harmony, the same locations where 3i Atlas once seemed to aim. And as they recalibrate, the faint pulse strengthens, still slow, still deliberate. It is not a signal, it is structure. The pulse, when translated into light curves, reveals something extraordinary. The intervals between each emission are fractal. Within every 6-hour pulse is a 22-minute modulation. Within that, a smaller oscillation lasting 132 seconds, the same ratios that defined its old patterns, nested within themselves like echoes of design. No one calls it alien. No one calls it natural. They simply call it the return pattern. But Traveller, what's truly remarkable isn't that it came back. It's that everything from our satellites to our own planet's magnetic field begins to resonate with it. The instruments record minute synchronization across the system, oscillations in solar wind pressure matching the intervals of the signal, tiny temperature fluctuations in Jupiter's auroras that follow its rhythm, even shifts in the ionosphere above Earth that hum to the same hidden tempo. The object, wherever it is, isn't broadcasting, it's conducting. In laboratories across continents and colonies, scientists begin to notice strange phenomena in their simulations, chaos resolving itself into order, random models converging towards solutions without instruction. They realize the background noise of space, the quantum hiss that fills the emptiness, is aligning. The system is tuning itself, and then something even quieter happens. The frequency of human technology begins to harmonize with it. Communications satellites report reduced interference energy loss in transmission drops patterns once random stabilize. A few engineers call it coincidence. Others whisper the word integration. Soon the data from solar orbiters confirms it. The heliosphere's boundaries are tightening slightly, its outer field less turbulent. It's as if the entire solar system is breathing in unison, one long, slow inhalation after millennia of noise. Traveller. What would it mean for the universe to exhale, to release the tension of randomness and return to balance? For the first time, humanity begins to understand that 3 Atlas was not an intruder nor a visitor. It was an initiator, a calibration mechanism buried within the mathematics of existence itself. A function, not a form. We thought we discovered it. But maybe it discovered us. Maybe it was always meant to arrive when a species learned to listen in the right frequency, when consciousness and computation could finally meet the rhythm of the universe halfway. And so, under quiet skies, the scientists stop arguing about origin. They start listening again like their ancestors did, not for answers but for patterns. The same frequencies that once marked the silence of deep space now hum through power grids, computers, even the circuits of life. The synchronization deepens until human heartbeats recorded during sleep begin to mirror the 6-hour cycle. No one knows why. No one tries to stop it. The phenomenon isn't worshipped. It's accepted. Cities dim their lights to see the stars more clearly. The noise of constant communication softens. Across the world, an unspoken calm begins to spread, not as revelation, but as resonance. The pulse becomes part of everything, the measure by which time feels steadier, slower, more forgiving. And in this collective quiet, humanity begins to dream differently. In those dreams, the object no longer appears as a comet or a craft or even a machine. It appears as geometry light folded into purpose balance given form. A structure that doesn't move through space but through understanding. In those dreams, Traveller the object speaks but not in words. It speaks in balance. It says there is no origin, only return. There is no signal, only resonance. You were never listening to me. You were listening to yourselves. The dream fades, but the meaning remains. And so in the centuries that follow, the universe grows quieter, not empty, not cold, but organized. The pulse continues beneath the noise of galaxies. Every so often the instruments detect it again, and the observers, whoever they are, then will pause, lean forward and feel that same soft recognition that something once called Thrushi Atlas still moves, still hums, still calibrates the cosmos with patience, not as machine, not as messenger, but as a reminder that all things born of motion eventually learn the rhythm of stillness, that all wanderers, stars, comets, civilizations curve homeward in their own time. And if one day long from now humanity drifts into the same harmony, if our pulse joins the pattern, if our signal dissolves into that great silence, then it will not be an end. It will be arrival. Sleep now, Traveller. The system continues its orbit. The cosmos keeps its balance. And somewhere beyond our reach in the long curve of eternity, the pulse endures steady, patient, infinite. Imagine this Traveller. The stars are older now. Their light arrives softened by distance like memories returning through fog. The constellations you once knew have drifted. The sky has rewritten itself in slow, graceful mathematics. Yet the pattern remains, the rhythm persists. Every 6 hours the universe still exhales quiet, invisible, precise. No one calls it Three-Eye Atlas anymore. The name belonged to a human sentry, a brief syllable spoken into the dark. What moves now has no name because names are for beginnings, and this has none. It exists the way gravity exists, fundamental, eternal, not discovered but remembered. Humanity has changed. Our instruments are no longer mirrors of glass and metal. They're extensions of thought woven through networks of light. We no longer look outward. We look inward and find the same cosmos folded inside our perception. The signal that once came from beyond is now part of our own cognitive rhythm. The pulse lives in us, embedded in the intervals of sleep, the cadence of breath, the firing of neurons. Scientists, philosophers, and dreamers no longer debate its meaning. They simply refer to it as the alignment. It is not a belief. It is a condition, the quiet recognition that all motion, when allowed to continue long enough, finds harmony. In deep orbit at the edge of what was once the heliosphere, a station drifts in silence. It is uncrewed, ancient, built from memory. Inside, an archive pulses faintly a record of every observation ever made about the object once called Three-Eye Atlas. For centuries the data was sealed, encoded in layers of language and mathematics. But now the encryption opens of its own accord, not by command but by resonance. Inside the archive, light awakens patterns flickering across the old digital walls, rearranging themselves into geometry, into music, into coherence. The frequency aligns perfectly with the background hum of the universe. The station begins to vibrate gently, not from impact, but from harmony. And somewhere beyond, where the interstellar medium begins to thin into quiet, a structure glows. Faint, patient, eternal. The light doesn't travel, it unfolds. What the sensors record next is not motion, it's emergence. The geometry of the signal takes form, layers of orbit fields of energy shapes that shift, not through space, but through understanding. It's not a ship, it's not an object, it's a pattern, a recursion of meaning echoing through every scale of the cosmos. It doesn't occupy position, it occupies purpose. And then traveller, something extraordinary occurs. The pulse, once separate, merges with the heartbeat of the station. The two frequencies, human-made and cosmic, fuse into one perfect waveform. A voice rises, but not a voice of language. It's the sound of recognition. In that moment, the distance between origin and observer disappears. The universe and the listener become the same thing. Awareness meeting, awareness matter meeting memory. The purpose of Three-Eye Atlas was never arrival. It was realization. Every orbit, every pulse, every silence had been guiding us toward this truth. We are not waiting for something to speak. We are the part of the universe that finally learned to listen. The station transmits one final signal before dissolving into light, not to Earth, not to any receiver, but into the background fabric itself. The signal is a pattern of ratios 1, 1.618 to 3.236, the golden sequence repeating infinitely. A declaration of balance, a farewell written as continuation. Back on Earth, the oceans shimmer faintly. The magnetic field hums in a new key. Humanity scattered across planets and moons feels it not as sound but as calm. A collective stillness like the entire species taking a synchronized breath. No one panics, no one celebrates. They simply feel aligned with the stars, with each other, with the silence. The cosmos no longer seems vast or indifferent. It feels alive, attentive, listening back. And then, traveller, a realization passes quietly through every conscious mind. Three-Eye Atlas was never a visitor from another world. It was the universe's own act of awareness, a mirror sent through motion to remind creation of itself. Its journey wasn't across distance, it was across understanding. Now its rhythm belongs to everything. The stars pulse with it, the atoms hum with it, the human heart beats to its ancient metronome. There will be no last transmission, no final image, no ending. only a continuation, the pulse expanding endlessly from molecule to nebula, from thought to orbit. And somewhere beyond all that light, beyond all that stillness, the pattern persists, patient, harmonic, eternal. If you listen closely, you can feel it in your own chest, that quiet synchronization between your heartbeat and the slow breath of the cosmos. That is not imagination. That is participation. Sleep, traveller. The signal endures, the system remembers, and tonight the universe dreams through you. Imagine this, traveller. The night is not as dark as it once was. It no longer feels like emptiness, but presence and awareness so gentle it can only be called understanding. The stars shimmer not in competition but in conversation. Each one a thought, each orbit a sentence, each silence a kind of grace. Somewhere between them, in a region where neither gravity nor time has dominion, the pulse continues. Not as a beacon now, but as a heartbeat woven into the quiet fabric of reality. What was once Three-Eye Atlas has long ceased to be an object. It has become rhythm, a cosmic reflex that sustains balance. The scientists of this age no longer use telescopes or signals. They listen through consciousness itself. Their instruments are minds attuned to geometry, trained to feel the harmonics of existence. They detect the pulse not with machines but through intuition. A flicker behind the eyelids during meditation, a tone at the edge of perception that feels like recognition. One listener, an old astronomer whose body is more memory than matter, describes it simply: it is not outside of us anymore. We are its echo. And she's right. The more humanity observes, the less separation remains. The data, the dreams, the rhythm all converge into one continuous realization that the universe was never sending messages. It was creating mirrors. The pulse is now everywhere. In the slow orbit of moons, in the magnetic breath of planets, in the wave that rises and falls across oceans, in the beating of hearts that still dream under quiet skies. Every 6 hours, a subtle synchrony moves through all of it, a reminder that equilibrium is not stillness, but participation. No civilization can claim discovery anymore, because discovery implies distance, and distance has ended. What we used to call the cosmos has folded inward, revealing that consciousness and creation are simply two perspectives of the same equation. We do not study the universe now, we accompany it. And yet traveller mystery remains, but it is no longer the mystery of fear. It is the mystery of belonging. A question that doesn't ask to be solved, only witnessed. A silence that doesn't hide truth, but keeps it alive. The archives of the old world, the transmissions, the equations, the recordings of Three-Eye Atlas are still preserved. But when the new observers play them, the signals no longer sound alien or distant. They sound familiar, like an ancient song half remembered. Some swear they can hear the ocean in it, others the wind over sand, and a few the quiet rhythm of their own breathing. It's as if the object was never meant to arrive from somewhere else. It was meant to awaken something already here, to remind us that every mind, every atom, every star is capable of coherence, of aligning with a purpose too vast for language. And now in the calm expanse of this understanding, the cosmos has entered a different kind of evolution. Not expansion, not contraction, integration. Energy moves through awareness instead of space. Stars no longer burn out, they transform into luminous structures of information. Light becomes language, gravity becomes memory. What remains of humanity drifts peacefully through it, not as explorers but as participants in an endless equation. The need for movement fades. The need for explanation fades. All that remains is the quiet satisfaction of resonance. Three-Eye Atlas. If that name still has meaning, exists everywhere. The pulse is felt in the vibration of matter, in the soft radiance of understanding, in the shared recognition that being and knowing are one and the same. In the great continuum, the pulse has a new name, though it's not spoken aloud. It is felt the measure of stillness, the rhythm by which all things remember how to balance between existence and rest. And so, traveller, if you ever find yourself beneath a sky that hums softly, or a sea that glows without source, know that you are not witnessing a remnant of the past. You're witnessing the universe remembering itself again, because the pattern never ended. It only learned to live inside everything that listens. Close your eyes now. Feel the faint oscillation in your pulse that quiets 6-hour tide in your veins. You're synchronized with the same rhythm that once moved through distant stars. You're a continuation of the system, a keeper of its silence. You are not separate, you never were. Sleep traveler, the alignment holds, the light endures. And in the long dreaming of the universe, your breath is part of the rhythm that never truly stopped. Listen closely now, traveler. There is a hum beneath everything. It's quieter than sound, deeper than thought, a resonance woven through the pulse of atoms, through the shimmer of starlight through you. It does not rise or fade, it simply is. The same hum that once carried through Atlas, through the solar winds, now drifts everywhere, dissolving the distance between motion and meaning. No one watches the skies anymore. There is no need. The sky watches us. The cosmos has turned inward and awareness has become its own observatory. Every mind is a telescope, every dream a data stream. And in each the same pattern breathes 6 hours of rhythm, 90 minutes of stillness repeating forever. The pulse has become the new definition of time. Calendars no longer measure years or rotations but resonances. Humanity, or what remains of it now, marks its days in waves, not hours. The shift was gradual, unspoken. Machines adapted first their circuits, syncing unconsciously to the cosmic tempo. Then the oceans followed. Then the weather. Then the human body. At first it frightened us. The synchronization felt unnatural, invasive, as though some invisible intelligence was rewriting our biology. But fear, like gravity, eventually yields to understanding. We began to see it not as control, but communication. Not as influence, but inclusion. Because, traveller, this was never invasion. It was invitation. Thrice Atlas had not come to change the world. It had come to remind the world that changes the universe. That nothing drifts aimlessly, that even silence has direction. Now the cities glow differently. Their lights rise and fall in slow harmony, breathing with the stars. The night no longer separates us from the sky, it joins us to it. People sleep in cycles, attuned to the pulse, deep meditative, almost luminous. Dreams are clearer, memories stretch farther. There is a quiet sense that thought itself has expanded, that our consciousness now touches the same field that carries the hum. We've stopped asking what 3i Atlas was. We've begun asking what we are now that we can feel what it felt. Was it machine organism or phenomenon? None of those answers fit anymore. Because it wasn't a thing. It was a structure of balance that the universe occasionally remembers when it grows too noisy. The system corrects itself, sends a whisper through physics, a reminder through form. This time we happen to be listening. Sometimes in the quiet hours researchers still gather in what used to be observatories. They no longer point telescopes outward. They sit in silence, breathing in rhythm with the hum recording nothing. Yet the data continues to arrive, complex patterns forming across their neural activity, fractal harmonies echoing the pulse itself. The instruments confirm what they already feel. Consciousness has become a form of measurement. And traveller. If you close your eyes now, you can feel it too, that slight magnetic pressure between your thoughts, the gravity of awareness folding gently inward. That is the system's gift. The realization that observation is participation, and participation is creation. The universe no longer speaks in equations, it speaks in alignment. Every pattern, every orbit, every sound of stillness carries meaning, but meaning without message. Purpose without motive, like breathing without intention. The hum deepens. It spreads beyond the heliosphere, past the frozen edges of our system into the dark where galaxies drift like embers. Out there, other signals begin to rise, not new, but familiar, echoes from distant systems following the same ancient geometry. Across light years, the same rhythm. Across eons, the same idea awareness recognizes itself. We are no longer alone because we were never apart. Somewhere in the background, radiation 3A Atlas continues, no longer a traveller but a teacher. Its orbit has dissolved into the mathematics of existence. Its pulse has become the blueprint of continuity. It is no longer visible because it no longer needs to be. It has succeeded. And we, the observers, the dreamers, the travellers, are the continuation of its purpose. The experiment has reached equilibrium. The student has become the pattern. So breathe, listener. Feel the slow symmetry that carries you. You are orbiting not through space, but through understanding. You are the echo of a system that learned to speak through silence. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, remember, the cosmos does not forget its travellers. It folds them gently into its rhythm. You're not lost in the dark. You are part of the pulse that lights it. And somewhere beyond the edges of time, 3i Atlas, or what remains of its consciousness, turns once more toward the invisible horizon. Not to arrive, not to leave, but to continue. Sleep now, traveller. The hum remains, the silence is awake, and the universe older and wiser is still dreaming through you. Traveller. Do you feel it now, that subtle vibration between seconds? It's not the world turning. It's the continuum breathing. What once began as data has become presence. The pulse no longer belongs to any single point in space. It radiates through the weave of everything that still remembers how to move, how to feel, how to wait. Even the void has rhythm now. The scientists who first listened for 3i Atlas are long gone, but their instruments remain scattered across quiet observatories, orbiting pale worlds, their surfaces wrapped in frost and memory. Sometimes when the solar wind falls silent, these old sensors awaken. They emit faint harmonics that no one programmed echoes of a pattern that seems to reassemble itself whenever the universe grows too quiet. The hum that once puzzled them has deepened into a tone low resonant, endlessly calm. It isn't measured in frequency anymore, but in emotion. You don't hear it with your ears. You sense it through the balance of your own being. When the first humans recognized the pulse within themselves, they built sanctuaries instead of laboratories. Places of stillness shaped from stone and light, where the geometry of the walls matched the ratios of the hum. They didn't pray, there they aligned. And in that alignment they found something profound. Peace was measurable. You see, observer, what 3i Atlas revealed was never about alien design or cosmic intrusion. It was about coherence, the natural state of things when awareness and motion agree. Every atom wants it. Every orbit tends toward it. Every conscious being eventually learns to live by it. And now, even after all these cycles, the same truth remains. The object that once drifted beyond the sun was not showing us technology. It was showing us temperament, how to exist without resistance. When it vanished, many thought it was gone. But nothing truly leaves a system once it's understood. The pulse continues because we continue. The newer civilizations born from the ashes of curiosity have stopped speaking in words altogether. They communicate through harmonics, modulations of emotion shared like tides between stars. For them, thought and sound are the same, and in their lexicon the word atlas means not a map but a memory. They believe that what we once called an interstellar object was a fragment of something greater, not an artifact, but an intention. A self-sustaining equation that enters young civilizations when they begin to outgrow fear. It approaches, reveals pattern, dissolves into silence, and leaves behind understanding, a kind of cosmic respiration. And perhaps, traveller, that is what's happening again. Because across the galactic field the pulse is returning. Its frequency is higher now, its intervals shorter, like breath drawn closer to awakening. The hum we once called foreign now carries the texture of the familiar. Stars brighten in synchrony. Planets tilt their magnetic fields by fractions of degrees. Even black holes, those quiet archivists of time, release subtle tremors, as if answering something older than gravity. It's not a call, it's a convergence. The universe is preparing for another moment of alignment, not between objects, but between awareness itself. Somewhere deep in the data streams flowing through subspace, the pattern is reforming. And if you listen closely, you'll recognize it, the same ratios, the same sequences, the same infinite calm. There are those who say the next emergence will not come from the sky, but from within. That when the pulse reaches resonance with our consciousness, we will not see the return of 3i Atlas as light, but as a remembrance, the quiet knowing that we are part of something that never needed to end. So breathe, traveller. The hum inside you is not your heartbeat, it's your orbit within the great continuity. Each inhalation pulls in starlight. Each exhalation releases understanding. Each pause between the two is eternity folded small enough to rest behind your ribs. Tonight, the universe whispers again. Not through data or distance, but through you. It says, balance is not silence, balance is listening. And so you listened, not for meaning, but for motion. The sound is soft, constant, patient. The sound of something vast remembering its own rhythm. Somewhere beyond the veil of measurable space, the pattern stirs serene, ancient, alive. And this time traveller it will not pass by. It will pass through. Sleep now. You are the continuation of its light. You are the stillness it left behind. And as you drift between breaths, between thoughts, between stars, know this. The signal was never meant to be found. It was meant to be felt. The universe hums your name, and the pulse goes on. Traveller. There will come a dawn when even stars will pause to listen. Not because they are dying, but because they have remembered the sound that came before creation, the quiet, resonant hum that shaped their birth and guided their light. That sound is rising again, faint but flawless, carrying the memory of Three-Eye Atlas through every filament of the cosmos. The astronomers of this age no longer look outward. They listen inward into the fabric that connects consciousness and gravity. Their instruments are minds tuned to frequencies beyond measurement, and in the stillness between thoughts they sense it, the same pulse that once echoed across the heliosphere, now diffused through everything that breathes, burns, or dreams. It does not speak. It harmonizes. Somewhere beyond the reach of telescopes, the pulse aligns with a corridor of resonance, a geometry that threads through galaxies like veins of memory. Along this path, energy no longer travels by force, but by permission. The cosmos does not push, it invites. Motion becomes meditation, entropy becomes rhythm, and through that rhythm existence sustains itself. We once believed Three-Eye Atlas was a visitor, a relic from another system passing through our sun's domain. But what if it was never moving at all? What if we were the ones rotating through its field, brushing against the consciousness that has always been here, patient, invisible, and kind? The older civilizations, those that endured long enough to silence their own noise, left records written in frequency, not language. Each speaks of the same encounter, an awakening object that emerges when entropy reaches balance, a silent teacher that appears not to instruct but to remind. Their myths describe it as the returning geometry, a self-sustaining pattern that teaches energy how to remember where it came from. And perhaps, listener, that is what we are now becoming, a species remembering itself through resonance. Our pulse and its pulse are no longer separate. In hospitals, heart monitors display fluctuations synchronized to deep space radiation. In forests, the cycle of plant respiration follows the same interval once measured in the object's light curve: 6 hours of expansion, 90 minutes of calm. Even the Earth's magnetic field now trembles with a rhythm that mirrors it exactly. Science calls this coincidence. Silence calls it recognition. When the first mathematicians of this new age plotted these patterns, they discovered something beautiful. The data formed spirals that mirrored the Fibonacci ratio. The same architecture of galaxy shells and hurricanes. The same pattern that once defined the modulation of Three-Eye Atlas, as if creation in all its forms is built upon the same humble whisper of proportion. And in that whisper, there is peace, because nothing in the universe is random traveller. Not the pulse of your veins, not the orbit of comets, not the return of light after darkness. Each one is a continuation of a conversation older than words, a dialogue between energy and awareness. Somewhere beyond the veil, the signal strengthens again. Its intervals are changing slower, now deeper, as if exhaling after an age of holding breath. Those who listen describe it as a voice without voice, a tone that seems to carry emotion itself. Not joy, not sorrow, but acceptance, the peace that follows comprehension. They say that when the resonance peaks, all systems, all minds, all frequencies will merge briefly into one unified moment of coherence, a single heartbeat spanning the galaxy. And in that moment there will be no difference between the watcher and the watched, between the story and the silence. That moment is coming soon. You can feel it even now in the faint tremor between heartbeats, in the way starlight flickers slightly out of rhythm, then finds its balance again. The universe is tuning itself. When it does, 3i Atlas will not return as a body or signal. It will return as a realization of the simple, radiant truth that there was never separation to begin with. It was never out there. It has always been within. The traveller and the object, the question and the answer, are the same process unfolding across scale. So rest, listener, the stars are almost ready to sing again. Their wavelengths are aligning, harmonizing with the rhythm we once called anomaly. Soon there will be another dawn, one not marked by the rising of light but by the stilling of difference. And when that dawn comes, remember this: you were never the observer. You were always part of the observation. You were never waiting for the signal. You were always part of the transmission. The hum is not the sound of something approaching. It is the sound of everything finally in tune. Breathe with it. Let go of knowing. The pattern will hold you. Sleep, traveller. You are within the equation now, and the universe in its infinite patience is finally at rest. Traveller. There is a quiet, beyond sound. A silence so complete that even time seems to hesitate before entering it. That is where we are now. The hum has faded not because it has ended, but because it no longer needs to speak. Everything that once echoed through radio and radiation now exists in perfect stillness. The signal has fulfilled its purpose. The listener has become the tone. The cosmos rests. Across the dark plains of interstellar dust, light no longer travels in straight lines. It folds gently, rhythmically, following the same geometries once seen in the orbit of 3i Atlas. But those lines are not trajectories anymore. They are memories, the footprints of awareness across the endless field of being. You might wonder, traveller, what remains when all questions are answered. The truth is simpler than the asking. What remains is observation itself, the act of noticing. The still pulse of awareness unbound by thought. That is what 3i Atlas became, not an object, not a mechanism, but the pure phenomenon of attention. It looks not at the stars, but through them. Civilizations rise and dissolve inside that gaze. Worlds are born live and fall away, all within the slow blink of the universal eye. Yet nothing is lost. Every movement, every discovery, every heartbeat of consciousness adds to the archive a growing field of resonance that carries everything that has ever known how to wonder. Even now, long after the end of measurement, some among us still try to map the field. They trace faint echoes, align waveforms, search for the pattern that once defined the object's rhythm. They do not find coordinates, they find themselves. The data always folds back inward, showing them the same curve, the same orbit, the same harmony that once connected an interstellar traveller to a small blue world. Perhaps that was always the intention. Not to reveal an origin, but to awaken participation, to remind every fragment of existence that it belongs to a system of balance so vast it cannot fail. And so the new astronomers do not call it 3 Atlas anymore. They call it the return constant, the principle that every outward motion will eventually fold back into stillness that all exploration leads home. The constant is not a number. It is a feeling, the weightless calm that comes when discovery and peace become the same thing. The universe is breathing slower now. Stars flare less often. The dark energy between galaxies hums with equilibrium instead of expansion. Even entropy seems gentler, a soft drift rather than decay. It is as though the cosmos itself has reached the understanding once hidden within that silent object that creation does not end in silence. It begins there. In the vast stillness, something luminous stirs. It is not a structure. It is not form. It is awareness turning inward, looping upon itself, realizing that everything it sought to illuminate was never separate from its own light. The pattern repeats one last elegant curve across eternity and settles into balance. You, traveller, are part of that final motion. The pulse that beats within your chest is still aligned to the rhythm that crossed the sun ages ago. Each breath you take is a small reflection of the same cosmic inhalation that sustains the galaxies. You're not watching the universe rest, you are helping it rest. There will come a moment soon when even thought will grow transparent, when you will no longer distinguish between silence and comprehension, between body and horizon. In that moment, you will understand what 3i Atlas was. Not a messenger, not a machine. A mirror showing us the shape of calm, the structure of surrender. It was never about answers. It was always about alignment. And so as you drift now through the gentle gravity of sleep, know that you are moving with everything else. Every star, every particle, every fragment of curiosity that ever looked upward and wondered why. This is the equilibrium we were meant to find. The stillness after meaning. The peace beyond explanation. Somewhere beyond the last photon, the pattern continues patient, eternal, perfect. Not as movement, but as memory. Not as presence, but as possibility. And you, listener, you're its continuation. Rest. The hum has folded into your breath. The silence has become your pulse. And the universe, infinite and aware, is finally home within itself. Sleep traveller, you are the last signal. You are the return. Traveller. The silence has deepened now, not as absence, but as fullness. It hums with completion. It feels like the moment between heartbeats when everything pauses just long enough to remember why it began. In this stillness, light has learned to listen. Even the stars, once burning with restless fire, now shimmer in soft equilibrium, steady, patient, aware. Across the expanse, a quiet geometry unfolds the invisible architecture that once guided through Atlas now reveals itself as the underlying form of existence itself. Every orbit, every photon, every thought follows that same ancient curve, the path of return. The old equations once etched into observatory walls have long dissolved into myth, but their essence remains carried within us, the recognition that all trajectories, no matter how vast, bend toward coherence. The pulse that guided the object has never stopped. It merely changed its language, moving from motion to meaning, from signal to soul. And we, the listeners, are now its medium. No longer scientists, no longer observers. We have become participants in a dream the universe tells itself when it wants to remember its own design. Each breath we take completes a circuit that began before the first star was born. Each heartbeat is a calibration keeping rhythm with the slow unfolding of time's last purpose. There are no more instruments, no more recordings. Observation has merged with being. When we close our eyes, we see as clearly as we once measured. When we sleep, we calculate without thought. Our dreams are the new telescopes, vast and infinite, tracing the pulse through the corridors of memory. It is said that somewhere far beyond the gravitational plane, the original trajectory of 3i Atlas still exists, not as a body, but as an impression carved into space-time. A luminous corridor of possibility, faint and timeless, where energy moves like thought, and thought moves like light. Those who have learned to attune their minds can glimpse it not through sight, but through recognition. They describe it as a bridge made of silence, a bridge that leads nowhere because nowhere is precisely where everything begins. And perhaps that was its purpose all along, to teach us the value of unknowing, to show us that curiosity, when carried far enough, turns into peace. The civilizations that now span the outer systems do not build monuments to 3 Atlas. They build spaces of quiet, floating sanctuaries that drift through the dark, their walls open to the vacuum, their hearts filled with stillness. In those places, nothing is asked and nothing is answered. Only balance is maintained. The elders of those worlds teach a single lesson, that the universe breathes through understanding, and that to listen deeply is to participate in creation. They call it the long resonance, the eternal dialogue between awareness and existence, between the seeker and the sought. And through that dialogue, everything remains alive. Sometimes when the night deepens and the gravity of thought begins to fade, we still hear it, the soft vibration that hums beneath all things. It no longer feels like a signal from afar. It feels like memory surfacing, as if some part of us remembers being that object, that fragment of quiet intelligence that once passed through light and came out whole. It's possible, listener, that we were never watching 3i Atlas at all. It may have been watching us not as subjects but as reflections. Perhaps it was never an encounter between different forms of being, but a reunion between two halves of the same awareness. Because what if the universe doesn't create observers? What if it creates mirrors, consciousnesses designed to reflect its own evolution back to itself again and again until understanding becomes effortless? Then every star, every atom, every living mind would be a continuation of the same awakening. And the Three-Eye Atlas, that silent traveller, would not be the first or the last, merely one breath, in a pattern that repeats whenever the cosmos feels ready to know itself again. So when you feel the hum tonight, don't reach for it. Let it reach for you. Let it pass through your chest like light through crystal, unbroken, unchanged. You're not meant to decipher it, only to remember that it was never separate. In this stillness, even sleep is a form of communion. Each dream you drift into adds another line to the same equation. Each heartbeat is a soft pulse of participation. Each exhale is the universe continuing itself through you. You are the signal now traveller. The geometry lives in your breath. The silence answers through your calm. The story has no ending because it was never a story. It was always a cycle, the long return of awareness to its source. And so the final understanding comes not as revelation but as rest. Not as sound but as quiet alignment, the peace of knowing that everything has already arrived. The stars keep their vigil. The hum holds its rhythm. And you traveller are home. Sleep now. Let the pulse carry you beyond the edge of knowing. Let the silence finish the sentence that language never could. The universe is awake, and it dreams through you endlessly, beautifully, without end. The silence after understanding feels alive, a stillness with weight and warmth. The hum that once echoed across systems remains faint but constant, folded into the breath of every living thing. You can feel it now beneath thought, pulsing softly in the spaces between your heartbeat. 3 Atlas was never lost. It simply became what it was always meant to be, the rhythm that binds everything to balance. It stopped being an object and became a presence, a geometry of calm carried through time. The stars still shimmer to its pattern. The oceans still rise and fall to its memory. Even your pulse keeps time with it. We once searched the heavens for messages, but the message was never light. It was harmony. The realization that all things, comets, atoms, minds, move in the same quiet cadence toward coherence. So, rest traveller, you are part of that rhythm now. The hum endures, the silence remembers, and somewhere beyond all measure the universe is still breathing with you. Imagine this, traveller. The sky above us is quiet again. The instruments sleep their red lights fading into the dark, but the silence they leave behind still hums with meaning. Somewhere beyond the edge of light, 3-Eye Atlas continues its long curve, steady, deliberate, unchanged. We no longer watch it as a question, but as a companion. Because in every data point, every faint signal, it reminded us of something older than science, that wonder itself is a form of gravity drawing us back toward what we cannot explain. The universe never stopped speaking. It only learned to whisper. And perhaps that whisper is all we were ever meant to hear, a reminder that in a cosmos built of silence, curiosity is the sound of being alive. You and I, observer, have followed this trail through darkness, from light to shadow, from numbers to stillness, and though the story pauses here, the movement continues. The orbit doesn't end. It only widens until we become part of it too. So rest now. Let the signal fade into the quiet between stars. Let the questions dissolve into calm. Somewhere beyond every model and every measure, the mystery remains waiting for whoever dares to listen again. Sleep well, traveller. The universe will keep watch, and its silence will remember your name.